There's a kind of silence that doesn't come from peace. It comes from giving up. You're not crying. You're not panicking. You're not screaming for help. You just lie there, fully dressed, showered in apathy, alive, but only because your body hasn't stopped yet, and everyone thinks you're fine, because you showed up, because you smiled, because you said, "I'm just tired." But they don't understand. This isn't tired. This is existential decay. If you've ever been there, if you're there right now, like this video, because most people won't talk about it, but we will. And if you've ever felt like you're drowning in a room full of people, subscribe. Because Nietzsche didn't just survive this darkness. He lived inside it. And he wrote what most of us are too afraid to say. Invisible threads are the strongest ties. Even if no one sees what's breaking inside you, it's real. And it's killing you slowly. Depression isn't sadness. It's emptiness, wearing a human face. It's waking up and feeling nothing. No joy, no pain. Just a dull, endless weight. You stop dreaming. Stop hoping. Stop planning. Not because you've given up on life, but because life has stopped making sense. And here's the part no one talks about. You don't always want to die. You just don't know how to keep living. There's no enemy, no visible wound, no reason strong enough to point to. It's like your soul is underwater, and every breath feels borrowed. And Nietzsche knew this. He once said, "He who has a why to live can bear almost any how." But what if you've lost your why? What if you don't remember why you even started? What if the how is all you have left, and it's crushing you? Depression isn't crying every night. It's staring at the wall for hours. It's skipping meals because food tastes like cardboard. It's laughing at jokes that don't touch you anymore. It's feeling like you're watching your own life happen from 1,000 miles away. And still, somehow, you keep going. You go to work. You text people back. You say, "I'm okay." But you're not okay. You're carrying a grief for a version of yourself you don't remember how to be. Nietzsche understood this better than most. He lost everything. His health, his friends, his sanity. He went blind, deaf, and insane. And yet, he wrote, "To live is to suffer. To survive is to find some meaning in the suffering." But what if suffering is all you've known? What if the pain isn't dramatic? It's just always there. Not as fire, but fog. Not as agony, but nothingness. That's the real face of depression. Not chaos, but silence. Not crying, but numbness. You're not lazy. You're not weak. You're not dramatic. You're tired of pretending to be human in a world that demands constant motion while your soul is stuck in neutral. You've become an actor, a ghost, a perfectly functioning shell, and no one notices the difference. This is what depression really feels like. Not sadness, but the death of meaning. And Nietzsche didn't offer hope the way others did. He didn't say, "Everything will be okay." He said, "One must still have chaos in oneself to be able to give birth to a dancing star." Because maybe what you're feeling isn't weakness, but the darkness before the rebirth. Maybe this isn't your end. Maybe it's your awakening. By the time he was 44, Friedrich Nietzsche had already lost everything. His health was destroyed. His relationships shattered. He was nearly blind, plagued by migraines, and paralyzed by mental collapse. He lived in complete isolation, broke, disregarded, and eventually institutionalized. The man who wrote about the strength of will lost his mind. But here's what makes it even more painful. He saw it coming, and he wrote through it. Nietzsche didn't romanticize suffering. He dissected it. He didn't say, pain makes you stronger. He said, if you gaze long enough into an abyss, the abyss will gaze back into you. He knew the truth about depression, that it's not a passing storm. It's a terrain you learn to walk through, a terrain that doesn't care who you are, what you've achieved, or how badly you want to escape. So, how did he survive it? He didn't pray. He didn't numb himself. He didn't pretend to be okay. He turned his collapse into a confrontation, not with the world, but with himself. And that's what depression really demands from you. A choice. Not to feel better, not to fake a smile, but to sit with what's real, even if it breaks you. Nietzsche began to strip life of illusions. He wrote, "Hope is the worst of all evils, for it prolongs the torment of man." To most people, that sounds cruel. But for someone in deep depression, it's truth. Because false hope is toxic. It tells you it'll get better, while your soul is screaming, but what if it doesn't? So Nietzsche stopped chasing hope, and he started chasing honesty. He asked the brutal question most people never dare to ask: what if this pain never leaves me? And in that moment, his entire philosophy transformed. Instead of waiting to be rescued, he chose to build meaning inside the suffering. Not around it, not after it, but inside it. And that's the truth. Depression hides from you. It's not the pain that kills you. It's the refusal to feel it. Nietzsche called it amor fati, the love of fate. The radical idea that you don't just endure your suffering, you embrace it. You say, if this is what life is, then I will drink it to the last drop. I will make this pain mine, and I will make meaning from it. Because the moment you stop resisting the darkness, it starts to transform, not into light, but into truth. You stop pretending to be someone who isn't in pain. You stop apologizing for being tired. You stop hiding behind, I'm okay. I'll figure it out. It's just a phase. And you look yourself in the eye and say, this is where I am. And if I have to live here, I will rebuild something sacred in the wreckage. That's what Nietzsche did. He didn't escape the abyss. He built a philosophy inside it. Every day, he wrote with trembling hands. He poured his suffering into words so someone like you, a century later, could read them and realize, you're not weak. You're not broken. You're becoming. Nietzsche knew that meaning isn't found. It's forged. In silence. In darkness. In the unbearable weight of a mind that refuses to die quietly. And when you stop fighting the pain, when you sit with it, when you let it speak, you realize it wasn't there to destroy you. It was there to transform you. There's a phrase that goes around casually. You're strong. People say it to you like it's a compliment. Because you never complain. Because you keep showing up. because you've learned how to function while falling apart. But here's the truth. Nobody wants to say, you're not strong, you're silent. And that silence isn't peace, it's punishment. Most people don't survive depression. They endure it. They drag themselves through it like a corpse wearing clothes, smiling on the outside, numb on the inside. And society loves them for it, because they don't cause trouble. They don't ask for help. They don't break the illusion of control. Nietzsche saw this long before the world pretended to care about mental health. He saw the quiet epidemic, people living with buried grief, unspoken trauma, and internal wars that no one could see, and no one wanted to. He said, in individuals, insanity is rare, but in groups, parties, nations, and epochs, it is the rule. It's not you that's broken. It's the system you were raised in, the society that demands constant production and zero emotional reality. You were taught to be polite, to be low maintenance, to never need too much, feel too much, cry too loudly, ask for too many answers. And over time, that became your personality. Now people love you for being easy, for being strong, for never being a burden. But deep down, you're exhausted. Exhausted from being the one who never falls apart. Exhausted from waking up every day and putting on the same mask. And most painfully, exhausted from calling that survival healing. Here's what Nietzsche understood. Most people don't want to heal. They want to escape. There's a difference. Healing is confrontation. It's staring into your own void and not looking away. It's feeling everything you've avoided for years without flinching. But escape? That's easier. It looks like progress. It sounds like positivity. But it's just another form of denial. You go to therapy and tell half the truth. You meditate so you don't have to feel. You tell yourself it's getting better, even when you feel nothing. And this isn't your fault. It's what we've been taught, that healing is linear, that recovery is productive, that if you're still hurting, you're not trying hard enough. But Nietzsche rejected this lie. He believed that healing comes not from hope, but from truth. And truth is never convenient. Most people stay broken because they mistake coping for transformation. They've learned to function. They've learned to smile. They've learned to mimic what okay looks like. But ask them, when was the last time you felt joy without guilt? When was the last time you laughed and it didn't feel like noise? When was the last time you were touched and actually felt it? And they'll stare at the ground. Because somewhere along the way, they didn't just stop trusting others. They stopped trusting themselves. And this is where depression lives. Not in chaos, but in silence. Not in screaming, but in shutting down. Not in fire, but in frost. A quiet, heavy frost that dulls every edge of your soul until you forget you were ever made of fire to begin with. Nietzsche chose to bleed. When his life collapsed, physically, mentally, socially, he didn't run. He didn't sedate it. He didn't sell a quick solution. He wrote. He wrote with trembling hands, with blurred vision, with an unraveling mind, because writing was the only thing he had left that felt real. And through that pain, he found power. Not because he healed, not because the depression ended, but because he let it transform him. He said, That which does not kill us makes us stronger. Not because pain is good, but because pain reveals everything false. Pain strips you down, and what's left is who you really are. Most people never get there, because they're too busy trying to get back to normal. But Nietzsche would say, why would you want to return to a self that was never whole to begin with? He invites you to go the other way, into the fire, into the wound, into the memory you swore you'd never revisit. Because in that place, you stop performing, you stop faking, you stop apologizing for your humanity. And that's when the real self begins to emerge. You don't need to be fixed. You need to be felt. You don't need motivation. You need permission to collapse without shame. Because only from that collapse can something new be built. Not better, not stronger, just more real. And that's what Nietzsche discovered in his descent. You're not here to survive silently. You're here to become truth. No more fake strength. No more hiding behind humor. No more toxic positivity. The only way out is through. And when you go through it, when you bleed and break and scream and still choose to breathe, that's when you meet yourself. That's when you stop being broken and start becoming whole. There comes a point in depression where something inside you dies. Not your body, not your soul, but the illusion that you can go back. Back to who you were. Back to before the pain. Back to when things still made sense. But you can't go back. Because the version of you that broke was never built to last. Nietzsche knew this. He didn't preach healing in the way we've come to expect. He didn't say, get better, or you'll be happy again. He said something far more terrifying and far more liberating. One must still have chaos in oneself to be able to give birth to a dancing star. It's easy to misunderstand that quote. You think it means inspiration, creativity, hope. But it's deeper than that. Nietzsche meant you must go through hell and stay awake while burning. You must sit in the fire of everything you've avoided and refuse to flinch. Because only through that do you become something untouchable, not numb, not hardened, but reborn. Depression is not weakness. It's the death of the false self. It strips you, exposes you, and shows you who you really are when there's nothing left to lose. And Nietzsche didn't survive this by accident. He survived it by alchemy. He took his pain and turned it into philosophical fire. He burned through identity, through meaning, through belief, and came out with something no one could take from him: power. Not power over others, but power over the one thing that enslaves us all: the fear of suffering. You want freedom? You want peace? Then you must stop running. You must become the fire you're afraid of. What does that look like? It's not poetic. It's not aesthetic. It's bloody. It's nights where you shake and rage and collapse and don't numb it. It's mornings where you look in the mirror and tell the truth. I don't know who I am anymore, but I'm willing to find out. I don't feel strong, but I'm not pretending anymore. I'm tired of surviving. I want to become. And in that moment, your depression becomes your teacher, not your curse, not your enemy, but your initiation. Nietzsche didn't romanticize this. He suffered deeply, mentally, emotionally, physically. But instead of burying it, he made it his crucible. And out of that crucible, he forged a new philosophy. Become what you are. No more masks, no more spiritual bypassing, no more waiting to be saved. You are the chaos. You are the question. You are the unfinished sentence that no one else will write for you. And that is your liberation. Most people spend their lives avoiding suffering. They work to escape it, pray to be protected from it, build identities to outsmart it. But Nietzsche, he walked into it, and he came back with something brutal and beautiful. I know of no better life purpose than to perish in attempting the great and the impossible. Because even if you don't win, you become unbreakable in the attempt. Your depression isn't the end. It's the door. A door most people are too afraid to open, because behind it lies everything they've suppressed. The guilt, the rage, the hopelessness, the hunger. But if you open it, if you step through, you begin to live with truth in your bones. You stop negotiating your worth. You stop apologizing for your pain. You stop explaining your existence. Because now you understand. You were never broken. You were becoming fire. And fire doesn't beg to be understood. It just burns and transforms. What if your depression isn't trying to kill you? What if it's trying to wake you up? Not in the gentle, spiritual way people like to preach, but in the brutal, bone-shattering way that Nietzsche understood better than anyone. Because real awakening doesn't start with light. It starts with collapse. You didn't just feel tired. You felt erased. You didn't just feel alone. You felt like no version of yourself even existed anymore. And when people said, "Hang in there," you smiled. But inside, you were staring at a world that had gone completely silent. A world where meaning had leaked out of everything. That's what Nietzsche faced. Not sadness, not grief, but the total death of meaning. A black hole that swallowed up everything. God, morality, purpose, identity. He called it nihilism, the terrifying truth that nothing inherently matters. And yet, instead of letting it destroy him, he sat in it. And from that abyss, he pulled out something that still echoes to this day. He said, "To live is to suffer. To survive is to find meaning in the suffering." Because here's what most people never realize. Depression is not the end. It's the invitation. It's the soul's last attempt to make you listen, to stop pretending, to stop chasing things that never fed you, to stop playing a character you never chose. Depression says, "Look at your life. None of this is real. None of this is you." And that's why it feels like death. Because, in many ways, it is. The death of the mask. The death of the dream you didn't believe in. The death of the person you became just to be accepted. Nietzsche didn't find joy again by going back. He found it by becoming someone new, someone that emerged from fire, from madness, from unbearable solitude. And he realized something most people never dare to accept. He who has a why to live can bear almost anyhow. But that why can't be given to you. You have to go into the dark and forge it yourself. So what if this depression is sacred? What if it's your soul? revolting against a life of lies? What if the numbness isn't your enemy, but the space being cleared for something real to enter? Not motivation, not false hope, but truth. The kind that changes everything. The kind that can't be undone. You were never weak for breaking. You were being reborn. But society doesn't teach you that. It teaches you to medicate it, mute it, spiritualize it, ignore it, because real transformation threatens everything that keeps the machine running. But Nietzsche didn't care about machines. He cared about becoming, not surviving. Becoming. Becoming the kind of person who walks into hell and brings back a mirror, so others can see themselves, so others can finally say, I'm not alone, I'm not broken, I'm waking up. This is what depression really feels like. Not sadness, but the moment you stop lying to yourself, the moment you realize, I don't want that job, I don't believe in that God, I don't love this version of me, I don't want to perform for approval anymore. And the grief that comes after? It's not grief for who you lost. It's grief for the years you spent being someone you weren't. But after the grief comes silence. And after the silence comes something else. Something small, but alive. A new self. One that doesn't chase applause. One that doesn't seek permission. One that doesn't apologize for existing. One that looks at everything you've been through and says, thank you for the pain. It set me free. That's what Nietzsche left behind. Not answers, not hope, but the path. The path that begins with collapse and ends with creation. So if you're still here, still breathing, still watching, still hurting, let me tell you something Nietzsche never got to hear. You're not behind. You're not broken. You're becoming something sacred. And no one can do it for you. But if you choose it, if you choose to stay in the fire and listen to what your soul has been whispering since the beginning, you'll come out of this not just alive, but true. If this video broke something open in you, like it so it reaches someone else who's drowning in silence. If you've ever felt like your pain had no purpose, subscribe. Because here, we turn suffering into meaning. And if you made it through this video, comment below. I am not broken. I am becoming. Let the world see you. Let others know they're not alone. Let the fire burn clean. Because now, your story begins.